I felt unsafe in my university's dorms. I wish I hadn't stayed during lockdown. My university was one of the many universities that have withstood numerous wars and other historical events before I was even born. It was one of the many institutions that are symbols of independence, marked by many as important, and was considered one of the best schools to attend in my area. I used my scholarship to attend this school so I could take accounting. My first year was during 2020. During lockdown, most students stayed at home instead of studying in the dorms. But in my situation, I couldn't, and it's all because I didn't have enough money for a plane ticket, and the stipends the school would give monthly wasn't enough for me to keep in more than 3 weeks. So a few dormers and I remained in the dorms studying in our rooms. The best thing about it was that I could still have a feel for the campus. Whenever I felt overwhelmed with the workload, and when I felt like I needed to take a breather, I would go outside and take a walk by the tracks until I felt relaxed. Everything was fine. Until nighttime. I'll be honest, I was always too busy to walk around for that long. I usually walked around on weekends, 4 to 5 o'clock, then back to the dorms. And on some foggy night, I got hungry and there were 200 pesos in my pocket, and so I bought takeout and went outside my dorm room to go and grab it. I passed down the field when I noticed a foggy thing resting by the waiting shed, where my food was waiting. But it definitely didn't look like a driver. It was a white, unmoving figure, tall and kind of droopy if you really looked at it. I hadn't noticed it before, but on that night it stood there, silently watching me pass by the track field up to the shed. It was creepy, but it wasn't the only instance of fright I would feel. A few months later, I started to suddenly feel a heavy feeling from my unit. I had never noticed something like that before. There was a huge hole in one of the walls of the bathroom, and it kind of freaked me out. I contacted the school about this. They explained that they would fix it soon, and that they would let me switch units if it was fine with me, and I agreed to it, which led me to the next event that gave me the fright of my life. After a few days of moving into a new unit, I noticed something rather peculiar. Every day, as if it was routine, strictly at 9:30 in the evening, someone would knock on my door 3 times, and whenever I opened it, no one was there. I thought it was just some annoying student running through the halls annoying other students. I didn't want the paranoia to seep through me. One weekend, I left to visit my cousins in Bulacan, and I had my friend Grace spend the night at my dorm. It was only then that my suspicions were deemed true. The next morning, Grace woke up in a cold sweat. The electric fan was off. There was no sign of electricity, and so she asked other students who lived among the dorms if they too had lost power. Everyone else claimed to have electricity. She checked the electrical circuit breakers. What was terrifying was that they were all shut down. A few days after that, I went back to my dorm. When I got back, I took a shower. The whole time I was in the bathroom, I felt nothing but eyes glued on me. Once I finished, I went outside the bathroom and dried myself up. And as I left the towel by the drying rack, that was when I heard it. As if breathing heavily down the nape of my neck, a voice seemed to breathe a deep and chilling sigh. I felt all the hairs on my body stand up, and I couldn't do anything but deal with it until I had enough money to move out of the dorms. The same 9:30 door knocks, the heavy eyes in the bathroom, the electrical circuit breakers all off, and even loud banging of objects became an everyday occurrence for me. It didn't feel safe in the dorms anymore, and later on something would wake me up in the dead of night, something would get on top of my bed and start shaking me awake no matter the time. Soon enough, I got tired of the occurrences and decided to move out. I moved to a different room in a separate dorm building, and I've never had the same experiences again. I am thankful that the occurrences have stopped, but to simply even type this out was stressful. I hope that anyone who reads this is safe from any evil entities that love to play and meddle with people. Animals and the paranormal. We always hear that animals can sense and see what we can't because of their heightened sensitivity. My retired canine started following something in the room one night that I couldn't see. There is a door to a closet, and it has opened on its own many times. I've used numerous filters on my phone before, and I would see a dark shadow moving around where the walls meet the ceiling. And she's definitely following it. Do you believe that this theory is correct? If so, what experiences have you had with your pet? I'm never renting a hotel room again. Personally, the fall and winter seasons are the worst for me. The transition of summer to fall is always something I've had a dislike for, mostly because the energy, warmth, and fun associated with summer slowly fades away to an energy of depression and sobering. I have many great memories, over half of them being from the summer, but with mostly the bad ones being from the winter and fall. This one, unsurprisingly, is from last Thanksgiving. I think of it as my Thanksgiving treat. My family got into a huge argument a few years back, and ever since it separated the family into two halves. I wasn't present at the argument when it happened, but it was a failed family reunion, I guess you could say. Because I was not present, the separated sides didn't even have a problem with me, so I switch which side I'm going to almost every year during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Last year, I was going to meet up with my favorite side of the family, because they make great food and had my favorite cousins, aunt, and uncle, so I was, to put it simply, pretty pumped. My father gave me a blue 2001 Ford Explorer when I first got my license. A pretty basic car, but this was the car I was going to drive with for the meetup. We were going to meet at this bar and then do some activities, like go-karts and putt-putt. I absolutely love go-karts, so the entire time I was driving there, I was dead set on embarrassing my family on the track. Everything was fine for the first few hours. I hadn't arrived yet because of heavy traffic, though I'd expected it because it was a few days before Thanksgiving. I texted my aunt, who had taken the director role, why I wasn't going to get anywhere close to that bar that night. She told me that it was fine and that they didn't mind paying for another night at the hotel that they were all at, which I thought was a relief. After this, I looked at my radio clock and it read 11:57 p.m. Understandably, I thought it was a little too late, and I decided to look for hotels to spend the night. I found this nice little hotel, which I obviously can't state the name of, but all I can say is that it had a low rate and it wasn't crowded. I immediately thought it was a steal, especially for the night. I decided to enter the parking lot and park my car. I put on my coat because it was extremely cold outside and got my suitcase and wallet. I paid the front desk lady the rent, and I got a place on the 4th floor. I started walking to the elevator, and I remembered a feeling from something I have always loved about hotels. The clean, industrial smell and the hum of fluorescent lights. This hotel wasn't that old, but it wasn't exactly the newest. I guess it's just one of the details I love about places. Anyway, I got onto the elevator and pressed the 4th floor button. The click from pressing it felt really satisfying, like a click you'd hear on a typewriter when you press down a key. The usual beep, door close, and the ascension made me think this was going to be yet another normal night. The door opened and I headed to my room. When I arrived at room 425, I observed it was on the right of another room, so it meant I was going to have to hear someone else during my stay. Of course it was 10 after midnight, so my only priority was to place down my suitcase, take off my uncomfortable clothes, and head into a white, clean bed. There was nothing unusual, and I'm still surprised the following happened. Shortly after I had fallen asleep, I suddenly awoke after hearing something. I can't remember the sound, but all I remember is that it was loud enough that I woke up. I remember glancing up to the digital clock on the bedside, and it read 2:12 a.m. I shifted onto my back, and with my room door in sight, I decided to take a glance at it. My eyes darted from the texture down to the light peeking into my room from the bottom. I noticed a few shadows, like someone was in a huge panic. I wasn't worried, because if this was just somebody drunk out of their mind, it wouldn't pose any danger to me. I wasn't worried until I heard a knock, then another knock, until it sounded like somebody was trying to kick down my door. I heard what sounded like a lock being broke, and that was a trigger for me to get under the bed. I had grabbed my wallet and phone and hid down there like I was in a trench. It wasn't even 5 seconds after I had gotten under the bed until this random person successfully kicked down the door. I couldn't get any face details, but I was able to see the shadow of a woman through a light from when she kicked down the door. After taking a few steps forward, she yelled, asking where I was. She threw down the mini fridge from a cabinet along with the TV. Before she threw down the TV, my heart dropped. I don't have the best vision, and it's not to the point where I need glasses, but I saw the shape of a firearm with the glare of the TV screen. I knew if I even made a sound, even as much as a shuffle to reposition, I'd be dead quick. I wasn't sure about what else happened, but I heard a few grunts out of anger until she decided to sit down on the bed next to where I was. I could see up to her knee, and she had shoes that I feel like I recognized. From the silence of 3 minutes, I traced the shoes and the voice back to my psycho ex-stepmom, who made my dad's life absolutely miserable the previous few months before then. The more I thought about it, the more the dots connected. I was terrified. It felt like I was going to throw up, but I resisted the urge of gagging as to make a sound. What made me scared even more is that she wasn't doing anything for a few minutes. She was just sitting down, occupied with something. I don't know what it was, but I was horrified, and I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. I checked my phone, and the clock said 2:21 a.m. I was surprised it had only been 9 minutes. After what felt like several hours, a few staff, along with a police officer, ran into the room and disabled my former mom. I was relieved, and I asked if I could come out. They said yes, and I emerged from underneath the bed. After the police officer walked my stepmom to what I presume was the police car, the staff asked me a few questions. I basically told them what I've written so far. A few months later, we did find out that it was my old stepmom, which I guess was a form of closure. I had texted my aunt the next morning about everything, and they sent me hugs and prayers. It's been a year since this happened, because today is Thanksgiving, but I doubt I'll be renting a room at hotels ever again.